Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I am Eric Torenberg. Today we have Ryan Hoover. Ryan is the founder of Product Hunt. And today we're going to talk about product marketing, delighting users, personal growth, career growth, and how you've built such an incredible community around Product Hunt in just a few months. Now, I met Ryan about a year-ish ago through partially your writings, through also, you're familiar with my other startup, Wrapped FM.
I've tried
Yeah, we haven't
on
gotten you to rap
Rap
yet.
FM.
We haven't gotten you
Yeah,
to
it's not
rap
going to
yet.
happen, especially not on the camera.
Yeah, I was not on this interview. Exactly. So yeah, I've been following his writings, and a few months ago, I was lucky enough to be able to join Ryan at Product Hunt.
Yeah.
So have a unique insights into what you've built. So I'm pretty excited. So for those who don't know, give us a quick overview. What is Product Hunt?
Yeah. So Product Hunt is a community. It's a website right now where people submit links to new products. Could be mobile apps, websites, hardware projects, and many other things. And inside that community, people upvote the best stuff each day, the things they find interesting and new. And people discuss them, and the founders often come in and start answering questions and kind of telling their story. So each day you have a curated feed of new and interesting things, and that's what we do each day. So a lot of discussion around products and a lot of startup people, founders, investors, and so on.
Now it's really started to take off, and we'll get to that in a bit. But first, let's talk about the beginning of Product Hunt. It started as an email list, correct?
Yeah, it was just a simple email list. It was really, that was the easiest way to get something out there. I'm not an engineer, so one, I couldn't build a Ruby on Rails app from front to back myself, and frankly, I shouldn't waste my time trying to build something that complex to prove out an idea to see if people wanted it.
So in the beginning, is that what it was? It was just a test?
Yeah, it was. My morning routine is I go to Phil's, which is a couple blocks away, and at the time I was doing a lot of writing, and I was actually in a transition from Playhaven, so I was working part time, and I had a lot more free time on my hand, and so I go to Phil's, and one morning I just thought, okay, how cool would it be to kind of have a curated feed of products, new interesting products that are recommended for my friends. So created an email list using something called Linky and kind of a weird name. I know people kind of like, what, Linky which is just a very simple tool for creating collaborative email lists. So I created this list, invited a few dozen people. These were people in startups like investors and friends of mine and other founders, and told them, hey, if you find cool, interesting products, submit them here, and we'll get an email every day of those products.
And working backwards, did you think this could be a company, or this was what if the experiment went well? Like what would happen?
Yeah.
How did this develop?
So I've done a lot of different experiments in the past, and when I say experiments, they're just ideas. I'm always interested in just new things and new concepts, and I've played around with, okay, what if there was like a laundry, like an Uber for laundry type thing a few years back, and now there's Washio and some others, and I've just done landing page tests and kind of the basic stuff, and none of it I took off, one, and none of those ideas that I experimented with really had a passion around. And so initially Product Hunt was just another one of those things, and it was something that was fun and easy to do. It wasn't like I invested much time into the beginning of it. And from the input I got over the next following like 2 or 3 weeks, that's what inspired me to take it a little further.
I think it's important to note that you'd already built a network and almost even an audience before you'd started the email. How did you do that?
Yeah, largely that was based on my writing, and I say writing feels like such a professional term, and
Right.
really I'm not a professional writer at all. I actually hated writing when I was in high school and college. Maybe it was because I was forced to write, I don't know. And so over the past 2 years or so, I've written a bit, just about startups, growth, marketing, other things like that, personal growth. And over time, I've been able to build not a huge audience, but at least a small enough audience in this community to give me at least some credibility and at least an audience that I could turn to when I did want to run these experiments and try out things. So I've written a bit on my blog. I also helped Nir write his book, Hooked: How to Build Habit Forming Products, and that's done really well as well for him and myself. And through that, it's just given me a platform essentially, and that's really important, I think, for anyone that wants to build a startup. Like the hardest thing for most startups is not really building the product. It's one, figuring out what people want, so building something people want ultimately, but then two, breaking through the noise and getting people to actually pay attention. And if you can at least start de-risking the second part before you figure out what your startup is, and I think that's wise to start now rather than start from scratch when you do have a startup and you do have an idea.
What are some ways in which people can think about building an audience? So one is writing about products or something similar to what you did. What are some other ways people can
Yeah.
build an audience?
Yeah, and so not everyone should blog, not everyone wants to blog, and that's just one way of, frankly, getting attention and providing value in some way. So there are many people, many bloggers and founders that do write that I really respect and appreciate, and I've followed them on Twitter and I've followed their writing over time, and they have a lot of credibility because of their blogging. But people could also do that. They can also build an audience many other ways. It could be through podcasting, could be even event organization, so like conferences and those type of things, or even smaller things. I know, Eric, you've been doing more brunches lately, and we've done product hunt brunches as well over the past, I don't know, 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just really good ways of building community around yourself and ultimately providing value to some community of people. So those are just a few different ways of kind of getting out there.
So what I hear, so you spent, okay, backing up completely, you spent a couple of years at a mobile gaming startup as a product manager, and
Yeah,
you,
it was back in 2010 is when I joined, and it was 10 people at the time. I was a PM, and then we grew to like 110 people before I left earlier this year.
and do you think of that as where you developed your product chops, your product understanding?
Yeah, it's on the job is the best way to learn usually, and especially in
Mm-hmm.
a product management role, it's really hard to learn that skill set more so than engineering and design because it's not as there's no clear path to product management, and
Mm-hmm.
it varies between job to job. So for me, I was a product manager at the previous startup before I joined Playhaven. And that was, I think back on myself, I had no idea what I was doing. It was just a complete
Right.
mess. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a good thing because they threw me in the fire and I learned. And the same thing at Playhaven, I think back at when I joined and I was doing so many wrong things and
Right.
I have so much to learn. And Playhaven was a really great way to learn, okay, how do you operate as a 10-person company to a 100-person company? And how do you lead as a non-manager? Because PMs usually don't have direct management experience. They manage through implicitly in many ways.
What were some of the things you learned from expanding from 10 people to plus 100?
Uh, One is that the people that I forgot who said this. This is a pretty common quote. The people that got you there in the beginning aren't necessarily the people that should be there later on.
Mm-hmm.
And for speaking about myself, I believe I provided value later on, certainly, but I operate better in a smaller company. So I learned not only do you need to change the way you work as a person, but also as a team as you grow. But then you also, for me personally, I realized that I don't want to work at a larger company. I feel like my skill set and my interest is much better suited to a smaller team. So team is really hard. It's really hard to make those transitions from, let's say, 30 people to 60 people to then 100. There's a whole lot more challenges that go with that, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
have more process. And those are just growing pains that with Product Hunt we're a long ways from,
Yeah.
thankfully. But I recognize that when we do get to that point, that there's a better way of going about it than we probably did at Playhaven, frankly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but they're doing a great job now.
Absolutely. So you leave Playhaven and you don't really have a master plan. You're just thinking, I'm gonna start writing. I'm gonna be developing my network. Is it, you're kind of developing your skills? How did you see your career developing as you leave Playhaven?
Yeah, so I was going to leave. I gave them notice. This was around June or July of last year, and said I'm not sure where I'm going, but I think it's a good time for me to leave and go on and do something different. And at that time, I decided then, okay, maybe I'll just work part time, so that way I can transition a lot of the things that I have to do, and also things that I know because I'd been there for so long. I had a lot of tribal knowledge that I need to spread to the newer teammates. And then during that time, I also helped out Tradecraft on the side, which is a school for UX sales and growth. So I was doing other things along the way. And frankly, I did interview at a couple places. There weren't very many startups that appealed to me. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, I'm glad that those didn't work out. They just weren't the perfect fit for me. And along the way, I was just continuing to write more often and exploring just ideas. So I didn't have a clear path, honestly. And Product Hunt wasn't like I didn't leave Playhaven at the time or say I was leaving for
Right.
Playhaven or for Product Hunt rather. it's something, frankly, I just stumbled on.
And were you conscious of, hey, I'm building experiences, skills, developing a network. I know this is going to be valuable soon. I'll just, keep going and keep experimenting until I find my opportunity.
I in, when I think about it now, I say yes, but I don't. I'm not certain at the time that I was actually that thoughtful. Frankly, I
Hmm.
was writing in part just because I enjoyed it, uh, and then frankly, there is the egotistical side where you get the retweets and you get your
Yeah.
article in the next web and Pando, and it's kind of nice to have people, give you some pats on the back for that. And so that was a lot of my motivation really is just, okay, I like doing this. I'm getting some recognition. I don't think I thought as thoroughly at the time that, okay, this would be my launching pad to my startup or whatever I'm going to do, frankly. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, in hindsight, I think it all makes sense and the dots kind of connect now, but maybe not at the time.
Right. It's interesting. When you started Product Hunt, did you think, hey, I'm solving this there's a problem I see and I'm solving, or I'm just
Mm.
pursuing this passion, or do you think you need to have both, or what did you think?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Similar, I have a similar answer in that I didn't see the clear path for Product Hunt becoming a startup in the beginning. I definitely saw there was an opportunity here, but I wasn't bullish enough at the time, or maybe egotistical enough to say that, oh, this is a startup and this is a huge opportunity. So at the time, again, it was just an experiment. I was figuring out, okay, this is something I like. I like media, I like content, I like products, I like talking about products with founders. So Product Hunt was a manifestation of a lot of my interests, frankly, in the beginning.
Hmm.
And then as it started to take off, and as I thought more about the market and also where Product Hunt is going, is when I realized, okay, maybe there is actually an opportunity here to turn it
Hmm.
into an actual startup, an actual business.
Now you started Product Hunt in November, December,
Late November last year.
and right now Product Hunt is over 200,000 monthly,
Yeah.
monthly uniques. From the beginning, at what point did Product Hunt become, not just an experiment, but oh my God, we're seeing something here? What did that
Yeah.
look like?
Yeah. So the way I kind of describe it is, okay, step one, experiment, check. Later on, it turned into a side project. So when Nathan Bashaw, my good friend, when he worked on it, well, the first version he built over Thanksgiving break, and we worked on it for the first like 3 or 4 months or so together. That's when it started turning into a side project. When it was, okay, this is an actual product, an actual website, not just an email list, and it required continual maintenance and continual like work. And so at the time, it was like, okay, this is great. I'm enjoying this side project. I didn't want to commit to turning it into a startup at the time because I didn't need to. I was still at Playhaven. I was making a little bit of money there part time. So why not just continue to grow this and see where it goes? And then I started thinking about, okay, what does this look like if as a bootstrapped business, like a self-funded business? And I was pretty confident, and I still am, that, okay, what if I turn this into a $20,000 a month business for myself? Like that'd be fantastic, having complete ownership of it and making good money and basically having freedom. And I still think that Product Hunt could turn into that relatively easily compared to the other path, which now we've chosen is,
Hmm.
raising some money and going big and creating something more meaningful than bootstrap business. Now, I don't say that demeaning in any way to like people
Right.
that are self-funding. Self-funding is actually the right path for many people, and most businesses are self-funded and should be. But for Product Hunt, it just makes a lot more sense, and it's wiser for us to raise money and to get the right people on board and to have a huge impact, I believe, in the market.
And what was the traction you were seeing that caused that transition to, hey, this is a real business? Was it a lot of users? Was it that they weren't churning? Was it that they were important users? What was
Yeah.
it?
In the very beginning, it was going back to the very beginning email list. It was a couple hundred email subscribers is who signed up. So that wasn't really what kicked me off and got me excited, but that was good validation. What really excited me at that time was people would go out of their way to email me, and they would in person tell me, "Hey, that product and email is cool, and I enjoy it. I read it every day." And so those like qualitative feedback is really what encouraged me to take it one step further to build the community with Nathan. And so from there, it just continually organic for the most part started growing, and the product is just has some built-in network effects, and the model just works. And then
Hmm.
over time, we started noticing more and more opportunities to expand on that and expand beyond this kind of niche startup community.
Okay, we got to talk about those network effects and why it just works. This is Growth Hacker TV. They want the good stuff. When you were building this product, how did you think, hey, I'm
Yeah,
going to make
yeah,
this sticky, easy to share? What are you thinking? What are the keys when you built this product?
yeah. So there are a few different things. So one of them is, so let's go back to the email. The email is where it started, and the email today is still a big, big part of the product. And right now, we have almost 50,000 subscribed, and every day we blast it out and we see our site traffic skyrocket. And every product that's
Hmm.
featured on there gets thousands of more visitors. And so the email component is important not just for, driving traffic and attention, but it's a facilitator for habit formation. So what I mean by that is when you visit a site and you think it's cool, you do need a reminder to come back oftentimes, no matter how cool you think it is and how much you like it. Oftentimes you need some sort of external trigger, some way to bring that person back. And for us, email is a great way to do that because it's in their inbox. People read their email all the time. And it also provides value. A lot of people enjoy the email because it's a quick digest of the previous day and has other content. So I guess to provide something a little bit more actionable, the email or if your product is like a mobile app, like push notifications are a great way to re-engage. The mobile app icon on the phone is also an external trigger. There's also going back to the email side with the product. There's also social re-engagement. So when people mention your name on Product Hunt, when they
Hmm.
tag you, you get an email to come back. So a lot of different ways that we kind of pull users back into the product. The other key difference that with Product Hunt versus, let's say, Hacker News or Reddit or Dig and many of these other kind of community created feeds is the day parting. And the difference is that each day the board resets essentially. So the list of products on the page, it starts anew. And it's kind of a way to reinforce that daily routine of coming back and finding a digest of the coolest stuff for this day and the
Hmm.
previous day and the next. And it's also kind of helps curate that. There's kind of an overwhelming feeling when I go to a site like Hacker News for myself, and I know for many other
Right.
people, it's like this continually changing board of links, and it's almost like it feels overwhelming when you visit. So if it feels overwhelming and you have a feeling of not going to the site, you're not going to go to the site. So
Hmm.
um, the day parting is one aspect of that. What else?
Well, let me ask you about the day parting first.
Yeah.
So you're trying to build a habit, a daily habit around Product Hunt. You send an email every day at the same time, around the same
Yep.
time.
Yep.
It's a very simple email. You also integrate with Twitter, or we also integrate with Twitter. And
Yeah.
Twitter over Facebook. Why did you make that pick early?
Yeah. So there are a couple of reasons why we chose Twitter. One, it was easier at the time. We were trying to build something very simple and quick. So we didn't want to build our own authentication system. So why not just use Twitter? But more importantly, Twitter now gave us a consistent social graph, so that
Hmm.
today and in the future we know who you follow, we know who follows you, and we can start building out this network that over time we could start using to change the product and make it better, rather than starting from scratch where you know nothing about this person. Essentially, you just know their email address and maybe their
Right.
name. So that's one important thing. The other thing is that since everyone that registers is on Twitter, we now can communicate with them on Twitter. So
Hmm.
we, oftentimes pull in founders, and we also communicate with our users through Twitter. At least, you and
Yeah.
I both do,
Right.
and that's just another channel for us to engage. Our Twitter following on the Product Hunt account now is like 20,000 people, a little bit over that,
Hmm.
and that's continuing to grow because again, we're really focusing on Twitter and building that audience. So just like email and the site,
Right.
Twitter is another engagement channel for us.
And Twitter allows us to have everyone's full name and their handle, which is typically recognizable. So
Yeah.
we can see, oh my God, Ashton Kutcher, Brad Feld.
Yeah. And we
Um,
can verify that. Like if it was just email
mhm,
and password, how would we know that, that is actually Ashton Kutcher? We wouldn't really know that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing to also emphasize is that we are on Twitter all day. You know,
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
favoriting everything people say about Product Hunt. We are responding to everything people say about Product Hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been using Twitter as a growth channel for even before Product Hunt for yourself for a long time, right? What are important things
Yeah.
people should know about how to grow an audience on Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter is arguably the most important product in my life, outside of maybe like email. It's amazing how much influence it's had on my life and just the world. And Twitter is just the easiest way to stay in touch with people and engage with a huge audience of people. And when I was writing, of course, that's just one channel to distribute my writing. It's one channel to also get feedback from people You can also see, of course, who's sharing your stuff. So when I was writing heavily and I didn't have as many like maybe I'd get a couple dozen people sharing my essay or something like that. I would respond to every single person and thank them. And it's small things like thanks Kyle or thanks Bill or thanks Jenny. Like it's
Right.
using their first name, things like that. People, it might sound, I don't know, cheesy, but it's people appreciate that, and they also appreciate that you took the time to type their name. Like, frankly, typing
Hmm.
their name versus just saying
Right.
thanks about their name is important. So I spend a lot of time doing that, and just small little things like that over time on Twitter can add value. I also used to. I've been more busy now, so I haven't been able to. But I used to read a lot of blogs and share that through Buffer on Twitter, and that's a good way just to create a feed, hopefully of content that people like and enjoy and find useful. And
Hmm.
when I did that, and when I do that, I always tag the author's name just to like make sure that they know that I'm sharing, that I'm reading. And when you do that over time with people you respect and trust, like they start remembering you, and
Right.
eventually that's how you build up a relationship with them. Whether it's just a casual Twitter relationship, or you meet them for coffee someday, or maybe you join their team, or they hire you, or something.
And that's one of the biggest ways you've built relationships with people over time who've now become super early users of product. Famous investors and celebrities who are now early users, investors.
Mhm.
Through Twitter and through just kind of being persistently appreciative. How would you describe
Yeah,
it?
it's like it seems each individual interaction doesn't seem like much, but in aggregate over time, it means a lot.
Right.
And as long as you're not kissing ass, I guess there's a balance there. I guess
Right.
there's kissing ass and being annoying and being like kind of obvious that you're just trying to get attention versus
Right.
providing value or just like having fun. Like also don't treat things transactional, I guess is
Yeah.
one piece of advice I'll give people is just have fun and be like act like a human. And that's what I
Mhm.
try and do on Twitter and email and everything.
Some people, what I find more interesting, some people from the sidelines are like, "Hey, you know, Ryan Hoover, how did he go from 0 to 100 so quickly? Who was he? And now, he was writing, but now he's, on top of the world." And the response is, it wasn't just a few months. You've been working for years, to build an audience, to build a platform, to build your skills. What do you say to someone who asks, "How can I, develop a network of influential, incredibly smart people?"
Yeah, figure out how can you provide value, I guess. And
Hmm.
going back to your previous question, maybe it's blogging, maybe it's podcasting, maybe it's event coordination. How can you provide value to some sort of community or some like-minded people? And I guess that's the most important thing ultimately. Then going back to like just being like a normal, nice person. I mean, being in startup culture, people talk first off, and there's also a
Right.
culture of giving back and paying it forward.
Hmm.
And if you just stick with that over time, it'll come back to you. And I've had a lot of really awesome people help me along the way, and Product Hunt would not be where it is without the help of so many different people.
Right.
And also, I'm just really encouraged, and hopefully, I can help them in return. And I will, and I am. But
Hmm.
um, I guess that's kind of general advice. But yeah.
And the ways you thought about building value as it relates to your strengths and interests were you said I spent years as a product manager. I know a lot about products. I can have interesting insights. Or how did you think about it?
How do you think about which part exactly?
How you can add
Oh
value.
yeah. Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess when I was writing, first off, when I started writing it, it was like anybody else. You get no attention, and
Right.
it's kind of like demoralizing when you post something, no one reads it. But one, I just like doing it, and I started getting a little bit better at it. And I'm definitely not great at like amazing writer, but I can write good enough. And then over time, you start getting feedback, and you get a bigger audience and know like, okay, people are actually reading this stuff, and they like this stuff, and when you get just a couple people email you and say, "Hey, I changed my product based on something that you inspired or
Right.
wrote about," it's like really encouraging. So I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it is being curious and kind of experimental in what you do. And maybe if writing just didn't go anywhere and I kept at it for a year, maybe I'd experiment with something different, like more podcasting or something. I don't know.
Right.
Um, Everyone has different types of talents and ways to provide value. And if you're not in startups, like startups are one thing, but there are many different industries that you might be operating into where you can provide value in a unique way.
Well, it's interesting you bring up podcasting because that's another mechanism we've used to build our credibility, to build relationships. Is that something you saw initially as a strategy, uh, as a kind of user acquisition strategy? What do you think about podcasting, and how can other people use podcasts or do
Yeah.
podcasts?
So this kind of goes back to writing again. I started the podcast primarily because I wanted to do it and I thought it was
Hmm.
fun. And I've been listening to podcasts for years, like This Week in Startups, This Week in Tech.
Yeah,
Uh, every single day I still listen to those podcasts and watch this podcast. So it was partly a great excuse now that we have Product Hunt to say, okay, let's just talk about products.
yeah,
This will be fun. It's like now we have this platform to do it off of. And then also like more strategically though, podcasting is we have access to so many awesome people. You and I were
right.
interviewing and chatting with Scoble recently, and I've met Alexis and did a podcast with him and Kevin Rose and so many other cool people who I've looked up to over the years. So it was a good way to bring those people and kind of put them on a kind of bring the human side out of them. Like a podcast, when you talk to
Hmm.
people, is a lot different than
Right,
reading their writing, and that's a great way to build community because I think you and I feel like more like humans,
right.
and people can get to know our personality a lot more through a podcast than through Twitter and email. And those are still great ways, but hearing someone's voice is a lot different.
Right. And
And
that no, go for it.
the last thing I was going to mention is, you know, it's just another channel for engagement. So when they subscribe to us on iTunes, that's another like opportunity for us to remind them about Product Hunt, just like Twitter and email and so on.
Hmm. No, and you talk about one thing we talk about a lot is delighting users. Now, you think about, I'm a big fan of Quora.
Yeah,
I don't, but I don't know the founders of Quora. When I think about the use of Quora, I think about it Quora. A lot of
yeah,
users, Product Hunt, think Ryan, think Eric. They're building relationships with us, and that's making them more loyal. And one of the big philosophies,
yeah.
you started is build in public. Talk about how we delight users and what building in public means.
Yeah, so in the very beginning, we started sharing mockups and wireframes with the early users. So these were the first couple dozen people. Nathan and I were bouncing ideas around. We were emailing these people individually and getting their feedback. So asking them specific questions about what they thought about the product and what they thought about these wireframes. And that was a good way to involve them and make them a part of the process, and then also get feedback on how we should change the product before we built it. So early on we've been doing this, and then as we've grown we've also shared mockups with the community at large. So what was it, the first one we did was at the homepage redesign. I think it was either the homepage or the comment redesign. Anyway, it was a big site redesign, and we put it on InVision, which is a tool to annotate comments on a mockup and blast it out to the community through email. And that morning we got, I don't know, 100 or 200 replies and comments on
Mhm.
this mockup, and it was great. It was really exciting to have people sharing their ideas and also being excited enough to take their time to do that. And the feedback that we got was good, and we actually changed some things before we built it. So it's been this continual thing where we just add as much transparency as we can, and that helps tremendously in making people feel like part of the product. And when it's a community, it's more important than anything for people to feel like they have a say and they have like a voice in the community.
Right. And you might have a fear that you're like burdening your community, that they don't want to see these things, but they do.
Yeah,
The ones who love the product, they're fascinated, and it gives them more of a sense of ownership.
totally. I mean, Buffer has been a really good example of this in different ways, but they've been extremely transparent, like probably the most transparent company I've ever seen, and sharing their metrics and sharing their investor updates and replying to every single person on Twitter. Like if I tweet at them, I'm going to tweet at them right now and see if they reply before this podcast is over. Hey, how's it going? Okay. So I'll keep this open and see if they reply. There's probably a good chance they're going to say something, and it's what? It's 6 o'clock
Right.
Saturday. Um,
That's awesome.
so they're always trying to delight people, and they do that through personality and being human ultimately, and being extremely transparent. And Joel's done a really good job of kind of facilitating that over time.
Right. And it's been for us, that's one thing we've tried to do too, and it's been a bit difficult since we've grown so fast. But answering, as many people as we can,
Yeah.
just when they send us an email, and try to personalize that and convert every user that's maybe confused or unsure into a friend, into a fan.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's tough. It's tough as we grow because the support emails increase and there's only so much time. And so it's definitely like a concern of mine is like how can we maintain
Right.
that level of high touch and not spend our entire time answering emails or answering tweets because we also
Right.
have to do other things. So it's tough.
One thing we've also tried to do, so there are like a few different channels, right, where people get to know us. There's Twitter, there's the podcast, there's the email.
Yep.
We also try to do live events.
Yeah.
You want to talk briefly about that?
Yeah. We've done, happy hours, which are really easy to do. Like honestly, if you have I mean, you don't even need to like schedule like a reservation at a bar. You just
Hmm.
email out to a group, set up an event page, say we're meeting here. And when you have enough people in a community that are like-minded, they want to meet other people in the community. They want to meet you. So happy hours are super simple, super easy. I've always had a good time at them. We had one in New York like a month ago, I think, and we had like 500 people RSVP. I don't know how many people showed up, but there's a line out the door. It was great. And
Hmm.
then we've done brunches, which are also really fun. I think I enjoy those even more because they're usually 25 or so people. So it's more intimate. It's usually a good crowd and everyone always enjoys it. And, then I think we haven't really announced this publicly or we've kind of talked about it, but we've chatted about doing a hackathon and other things like that. So I don't know. It's fun when you take these interactions, these people that you've been chatting with online and then like meet them in person and chat with them.
Hmm.
It's a great way to build like a like more authentic relationship with them. Furthermore, they start building relationships with other people in that
Right.
community. And the best thing is if you can like make those connections through your site or your community, it's fantastic to see.
Yeah, and we've seen those people who we've met in real life, become some of our biggest supporters and fans and
Yeah,
contributors.
totally.
Yeah,
It's
and
in
then
like I
yeah,
think in the past 2 weeks we've had two or three people email us and say, "Hey, I want to do a product
yeah,
hunt meetup in Canada, in
Israel.
Israel." Yeah, there's Bram wants to do it. I forgot where, somewhere in Europe. And he DM'd me and he's like, "Hey, can you send me some of those kitty stickers? I want to hand them out at the happy hour." And so
Hmm.
we'll have to do that.
Awesome. Back to product hunt, the product marketing. So we've got that
Yeah.
daily habit. Another thing, we have all the incentives are aligned. So when a product is posted, the founder is incentivized to get as many votes on the product as possible. So they're sharing with their friends, they're sharing with their users, and each founder. Um, what are some of the other metrics designed to get people to share and keep
Yeah.
coming back? Can you hear me?
Yeah. So yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. We don't have many very explicit sharing calls to action. I mean, we have a tweet button. That's it. Like we
Hmm.
don't really force people to share. We don't have uh, walls where you can't access content before you share and that kind of thing. And that's just because the product is inherently social. Like people, one, they want to share cool new things that they like, especially early adopters. They want to share and introduce cool products to their friends, and
Right.
it makes them look cool because it's like, hey, here's what I found before anyone else. And so there's that aspect of it. Then to your point about founders and makers being in the conversation, of course they want to talk about the product. They want to get as many people in the conversation. They want to share their product and they want to get it to the top of the leaderboard. So, naturally that's just something that's going to happen. As long as we have like a big enough user base where we are meaningful enough, then founders will really care about that, and they should because we're driving, in some cases like over 10,000 uniques to these products in a like 1 or 2 day period. Um, so yeah, it's just the design of the product is for not optimize. That's a bad word, but it's just to be social.
Mhm. And another key principle that one is that we don't accept any company Twitters. Everything's got to be a real person, so
Yeah.
people could feel like they're having a conversation with a real person. Two, uh, we've limited the ability in the beginning, the amount of people who can post and who can comment.
Mhm.
So that incentivized, people want to, and it's been an exclusive club in the beginning. Talk about that, how you thought about it in the
Yeah.
beginning and how you're changing it as the community grows.
Yeah. So part of it, there are a couple of reasons why it's limited and why not everyone can comment or post. And one of them is just frankly, we can't open it up to the world. Like, frankly, we can't, or the site just wouldn't work. It's we do allow anyone to submit, and only a certain number of people actually have like whitelist ability to submit to the homepage. And we get over 100 submissions that never make to the homepage each day. And if you look at that feed, a lot of them are not on topic, they're duplicates, or they're just frankly just not really high quality submissions. And so by opening it up to the world, we would one have a lot of lower quality product submissions. We'd have a lot of self promoters because everyone in the world is going to, of course, submit their own product. And then lastly, it's just too many products. Like it's already too much when you have like 60 in a single day. Imagine having 200 or 400 products on that homepage. Now, there are ways to scale that, and things will be changing longer term to include more people. But you know, for now, the way it's designed, we just can't open it up to the world for many different reasons. The other thing is like we can't control trolls and spam and everything. If it was open
Right.
to the world, it's just like you and me on the community side, and now Nicole. So it's not like we have a whole lot of people to do moderation and that kind of thing right now. The other thing, is just or lastly, it's there. There's an important piece in exclusivity, or at least limiting to a certain number of people, because we can now start kind of facilitating that culture, if that makes sense, that culture of
Hmm.
where we want to go. If it was open to the world and you have a bunch of, let's take an extreme example, nothing against Justin Bieber, but let's say Justin
Right.
Bieber's fan base all of a sudden gets on Product Hunt and they can start
Hmm.
commenting and posting. That's a different audience, and Product Hunt is not for that audience.
Hmm.
So, we want to kind of build this culture slowly so that it can be meaningful long term over time.
Yeah, I know Justin Bieber is watching this, so no offense to Justin Bieber.
Sorry, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard Bronson Taylor is a huge Justin Bieber fan, actually.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
no, I'm just
I
kidding.
follow him. I
So
follow him on Twitter.
yeah, so we have the product, but Product Hunt is growing since January. What, 75% a month, 80% a month active users?
Unique since January 1st, 70% month over month unique user growth.
How is that growth being sustained? What are the biggest channels? What are we doing? What's the secret, Ryan?
Yeah. It's going back to the product itself. So one, people care about this content. I think we've definitely proven that, at least as there's a certain number of people that love finding out new products, and there are many different signals before Product Hunt began that led me to believe that's true.
Hmm.
And two, going back to the social aspect, people want to share this content. So a lot of it is frankly driven just through word of mouth. So we're focusing on Twitter. Everyone that registers is on Twitter. They're sharing this stuff on Twitter, and you and I are both like, I can
Right.
open up TweetDeck right now, and I can look at my column right now of Product Hunt tweets, and there's just tons every single day. So word of mouth is largely how we're driven. That's driven user acquisition and attention, but also press has been good. Press is a good acquisition source for us. And this is not true for probably most startups. I mean, it's good to get attention for hiring or for fundraising in press, but oftentimes you get that shark fin and those people never come back. For us, press is great because people that read TechCrunch or Panda or GigaOM, VentureBeat, and so on, those are the same people that want to find out about new products. So we've been really pushing on the press, and we're also adding value for a lot of reporters and journalists because they're using Product Hunt to find cool products to write about. And
Hmm.
so we built fantastic relationships with a lot of people at these press outlets, and that gives us an opportunity to one, get cited on their articles, but then also have them write about us, frankly, from the YC announcement to our iOS app that's coming out to a number of other things that we'll be doing in the future.
Hmm. And another thing we've been doing is all the top 10 products every day, or top 10 founders of the products every day. We ask them to write about, if they're interested, we ask them
Yeah,
to write about their experience, and we'll share it.
yeah, yeah.
Which gives them more buzz, gives us more buzz, and puts us in the same conversation as Hacker News, TechCrunch, some of these other.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it's a two-way street. Like they are spending a lot of time in some cases writing a blog post, and I'm super appreciative of that they do that. But it's not just for us. It's also
Right.
for them because they get to share, their experience, and they also get to promote their product, and we gladly will promote that as well. And people also they like hearing about these stories. They like seeing those Google Analytics graphs, and they like
Right.
hearing about kind of the behind the scenes in these startups. So I believe it's a win-win, in that case.
And a couple of those posts have gone, have done very well, even better than their initial post
Yeah.
on Product Hunt.
Yeah.
And that's our content market strategy, or one of our we don't have a personal blog yet where we're writing
Yeah.
tons of reviews. We're letting our users do it and promoting it for them.
Yeah. I mean, we could spend a lot of time writing
Yeah.
content, and we may do more of that, but
Hmm.
it's better if we can just have the community do it, and the community wants to do it anyway. So it's less work for us. It gives them an opportunity to get some distribution, and it also adds more humanness to it, if that makes sense. So it's
Right.
putting a face behind the community in a way.
Yeah. And it's right now. I mean, right now we're small and just a couple people, but we're not doing we're not doing traditional things that people talk about in this pod, like PPC. We're not doing Facebook ads
Yeah.
yet. We're not doing paid advertising.
Yeah.
Where Product Hunt was built with the incentives perfectly aligned with the founders incentivized to share, so they go to the top and get more hits. Press is incentivized to check it out because it's become the source for the source pretty much.
Hmm.
And you're passing we're passing products to reporters all the time. Investors, that's also a huge element of it.
Yeah.
A few companies have been discovered, and we've helped that happen where we're passing companies that come out to investors. Investors have funded a few products that makes founders. It's kind of a whole
Yeah.
a circle where all the incentives are aligned to
Yeah.
keep using Product Hunt.
Yeah, there's one thing related to that I'll mention too that is super important that not enough people do, and this is more tactical, I believe, is you know look and see who's signing up for your product. Whether you're
Yeah.
building just an email list or you do have like some sort of registration, like on Twitter, it's kind of frankly stupid if you're not looking and seeing who's signing up. So that's what I spent a lot of time in the beginning doing, and it was a lot easier because we had a lot less people signing up. But I would look at the emails, and I would use Reportive at the time. I would put their emails in Reportive, and I would say, okay, that's who that is, and oh, that's their Twitter handle. And I would start seeing more influential people, whether it's investors, reporters, and so on, sign up. And for many of those people, I would reach out to them personally and say, hey, thanks for signing up, blah blah blah, and kind of build that channel of communication.
Right.
And that's just a missed opportunity if you're not doing that, because frankly, there are some people. Let's use reporters as an example. You should be reaching out to a reporter and start building that relationship as soon as you can.
Right. And we can, you can build the best product in the world, but if you're trying to build a huge community, if you're not doing that outreach, it's not going to happen. One, we're
Yeah.
reaching out to all influencers, who use the product, even who don't. We're encouraging them to use it, to be our friends, to share, but also in a nice and polite way. We're not
Yeah.
ever overt about it.
Share or else
yeah,
no.
yeah. Two, just to give a sense, I know because you just checked this out on Inbox app. How much emails are you sending a day? Just to give some context.
Oh, a day. I can't remember the exact number, but a lot. I don't know. I I don't remember the number, but it was so the inbox checkup was an app that some people put together, and it scans your inbox to measure how many emails you send. And at the time, I think 150 people had used the product, so they started ranking everyone that authenticated, and I was the number one for most emails sent out of this
Yeah.
150 people of like startup people who send a lot of emails. So
And yeah,
I'm sure. I think you too. We're both starting to get carpal
Yeah.
tunnel.
yeah.
I'm
We're
starting
gonna go to
do some
carpal tunnel team therapy.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a culture event. So no, but one way we're able to do that. I mean, one is just sheer effort and just making it a priority. But two, we also use streak shortcuts is a
Yeah.
huge trick I've learned from you. You want to give a quick insight into what that is?
Yeah. So you can use Streak. There are many other tools for hotkeys, and just a lot of people will email you and ask the same question, and there's no reason why you should type up the same question again. And also, you don't want to go through that mental energy of respond thinking through how should I respond to this. You should just have something that's succinct and clear and respond that way. So that can save you time. But then the other thing I'll caveat that with is also don't be a robot too. Like
Right.
make sure the responses are still human and you're still like acting normal. And when you can, also like add something that's relevant. Like if you saw them, let's say on Twitter, tweeting about something, you might want to add a little comment about that, like, "Hey, thanks for the mention earlier," or something like that. So yeah, that can save you a lot of time because email is a time suck. And as much as I can try and reduce the amount of time it takes with hotkeys and other things like that and shortcuts, it's still unmanageable. I still haven't been able to respond to everyone, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So on a higher level, 75%, 80% a month, build the right product that has the right incentives, run an online community, become friends with the users. Are you going to look into paid or other, growth channels as we try to continue this, this growth rate?
Yeah, I don't think we need to do anything paid. There's no reason for us to be paying for acquisition right now, partly because they cost money and that it gets
Right.
expensive. But two, I'm not convinced that paid channel is going to lead to the best type of users, if that makes sense. Like the best type of users are going to be, friends of the people in the community right now, which is why we've started rolling out a recommendation system where people in the community that have access to post and to comment, they can start inviting people they think would be good additions to the community. And we're seeing, even just with the early tests, we're seeing people really like inviting their friends. It's kind of like giving their friends a gift. And those people
Right.
also, especially if they've heard of Product Hunt, they're like, oh, sweet, thanks, I appreciate that. So I think there are a lot better ways for us to grow, and paid's probably not, at least in the short to medium term, the right channel. But we've also the 500 startups board that we did. What was that, 2 weeks ago?
Hmm.
That was a great acquisition source. And what we did is on demo day, this is batch 9, we did a custom board with all the 500 startups companies on there. And that was kind of a fun, exciting opportunity for everyone outside of demo day to see who was in the batch and also read the founder AMAs and hear them answer questions and then upvote their favorite stuff. So that was a great way to acquire more users and draw attention, and people also just liked it. Like at the end of the day, are people enjoying what you're doing and building? And that's kind of like the true North Star. And then on top of that, you can
Hmm.
layer on, okay, how does this drive growth?
Hmm. Uh, Want to give the watchers of Growth Hacker TV just a preview. What can they expect in the future from Product Hunt?
Yeah. So right now, actually, let me open up my phone right now and I'll show you just a quick glimpse of the iOS app, which is something I've been wearing my QA hat lately, which is something you do when it's an early startup. You are
Hmm.
QA. You don't have a QA team, of course. So I don't know. You're not going to be able to see this probably very well.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, we
Yeah,
can see it.
yeah.
Yep, that
So
looks like the
it's
app.
so David from Australia, David McKinney has been doing an awesome job with this. Great design, and we're very close to releasing this. So we're going to start rolling out some betas probably in the next day or two to some people, some beta release, and then I'm not sure when we'll release this, but let's just say within the next month it'll be live. And that's a big thing for us. I mean, mobile, we've had a semi-responsive mobile website.
Hmm.
It's usable, but not great. And people have been asking for a mobile app for a long time. That's the biggest like short-term feature that I think probably willing to share right now. But
Hmm.
over time, we're still experimenting with these collections, which going back to the 500 startups board, that's kind of one collection.
Yeah,
We done like GIF app collections. We've done
right.
the YC Hacks hackathon collection. We'll do more hackathons. What was the last one we did? Oh, the nostalgic one. The
Yeah,
yeah, just like 30.
Flashback Friday.
Yeah, from Nintendo to Bianca to the Oregon Trail. I mean, just all these old products that everyone gets nostalgic about. We're experimenting with some of that and seeing what people like, and we'll be changing and improving that over time just based on the feedback we get.
Hmm. And two quick things I wanted to add before we left. One is that in Product Hunt, we get the founders in the conversations. So we've been lucky
Yeah.
to have people, Dennis Crowley from Foursquare the other day
Hmm.
did an AMA on Product Hunt. We had Mark Cuban do an AMA, Jason Calacanis. And it was really, the incentive for them was people were asking them questions, influential users were asking them questions about their products.
Hmm.
And they wanted to jump in, give value. That's been a huge lever of growth.
Totally.
Two, also, the Product Hunt, when they think Product Hunt, they think Ryan, they think Eric, they think, the other people involved. And that's something you want to continue as the team expands. You want to bring on people who are all about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's right now we definitely have we're putting our face behind Product
Hmm.
Hunt. And I think that's important now. And it will be important for the short to medium term as well. Of course, that's not entirely scalable. Like it's
Hmm.
Product Hunt isn't we're not going to be the face of Product Hunt longer term
Right.
for a number of different reasons. One, just it's not as scalable. Two, we're not the right faces for certain types of things we'll be doing, certain
Yeah.
types of communities or categories of products. So, but for now, it's people appreciate the human side, I think, of Product Hunt, and it's also a way for us to kind of create the interaction or like encourage the type of interaction we want to see.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to I've never gone through the practice of kind of articulating what product hunt is. If product hunt was a person,
Right.
what is it? But it's just by continually interacting and using product hunt, you and I, we can
Hmm.
start culturing that and
Right.
building that behavior.
And when it gets bigger, we can then call it Justin Bieber
Yeah,
and bring it full
exactly.
circle.
Oh yeah,
But
that's gonna happen.
yeah,
I'm
the
gonna,
nugget is when you're building an online community, especially in the beginning, you have to own it. You
yeah.
know, you gotta, assuming you're a friendly person people like, you gotta run. And then if
Well,
you're not, you shouldn't be, building an online community in the first place.
yeah. Well, you should. The culture is going to be sort of you in many ways, unless
Hmm.
you. I mean, you should start building a community around something that you either, well, one, have expertise in and a passion for. An extreme example is maybe like for myself, I should not be doing a community in like women's fashion. Like,
Right.
I'm not the women fashion guy. I have no interest in that. And if I tried to do that, even if the product was fantastic, what I wouldn't be the right person for that type of thing. So I think it's important to use your product all the time. And when it comes to a community, like Alexis at Reddit, he of course was super super involved in the community, and he still is. But he was the culture builder, and like I he's been helping tremendously with Product Hunt. We chat, and his like the way he interacts is like Reddit. Like him and
Hmm.
Reddit are very like it's like him and a
Right.
person, if that makes sense in many ways.
Hmm.
Um, and so he's always thinking about delighting people, and it goes from like the Reddit like little logo mascot to just the things he's done over time.
Awesome. This is the last question. This is a variation on the question Bronson asks to close every interview. Uh, what do you say to someone who is a few years younger and wants to build an online community similar, to have a similar success to what you've built? Where do they even start?
Yeah, start by so going back to building an audience or like figuring out where you can provide value. I would start there, and also be curious, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
product hunt would not have started if I just wasn't always tinkering and thinking about just things and having some sort of just desire to build stuff. So curiosity is one of those traits in people that I respect a lot, and with anyone that I work with, I want them to be similarly curious. And also when you do work on something or you want to build something, if it's something you want to be serious, not just like a weekend hack project, which whatever, do whatever you want. Then if it's something serious, then think truly about like, is this something I want to do? Is this something I want to pursue for several years? And don't jump into something like women's fashion if you're like someone like myself,
Right.
because I mean, you might do well at that, but I think you have a higher chance building something that you are a user of and consumer of.
Did you find things that you were passionate about but didn't have, didn't have potential to make money as you saw it, and then kind of dropped it, or?
Um, Nothing that I really pursued outside of like a week or two, I mean, yeah, nothing has really fit and hit all those check boxes like Product Hunt has. When I was leaving Playhaven, it was one, I wanted to build something for myself because I was sick of building products for other people. Two, I wanted to do something in the consumer space and really challenge myself there. And three, I wanted to do something in a smaller company, a smaller team. And Product Hunt was very small and still is.
Awesome. Any last words?
Um, No, but this is awesome. This is awesome to have you have be on Growth Hackers TV. I've been following for a long time. I think it's been what, 2 years or so?
Hmm.
Has it been that long? Yeah. And Bronson has what, 60? I don't know how many episodes he
No,
has.
100 plus.
Does he?
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. So yeah, I need to dig into his archives. It's been a while, but I get his emails and I've been following along. So really impressed.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure having you. It's been a pleasure joining you. This has been an episode of Growth Hacker TV. Ryan Hoover. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. See ya.